you are from, be it South Africa, Uganda, Mozambique, Tanzania, Nigeria, Ethiopia, wherever you are from, arise and dust yourself and let us fill the world with the transformed, the creative, the renewed spirit of Africa. Yes, it go happen, no. It go happen, no. Yes, we can. Sure we can.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our MWF Live panel discussion this morning on the topic of women's rights and opportunities and how to advance those on the African continent and around the world. I'm Nancy Hopkins. I'm Director of Programs here at the Presidential Precinct, and we're delighted to be hosting the 2019 Mandela Washington Fellowship and to have 4 Mandela Washington Fellows with us here on our panel this morning. And these 4 colleagues are also very active members of the YALI Network for Young African Leaders. Just to tell you a bit about the Presidential Precinct, we are a Charlottesville-based nonprofit organization that's a partnership among the University of Virginia, William & Mary, James Monroe's Highland, James Madison's Montpelier, and today we are here at our other partner, the beautiful Morven Farm. Thanks so much to Morven for hosting us today. This is the 6th year in a row that we have had the pleasure of hosting the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and we are so grateful for the support of the U.S. Department of State and IREX for enabling us to engage in this wonderful, impactful program. It's really been a highlight for our organization. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to our virtual audience joining us on Facebook Live this morning, especially colleagues from across the continent of Africa who are joining through our partnership with the YALI Network. We wish you could be here with us in this beautiful room at Morven, but we're so excited to be able to bring this conversation out from this room to your homes and your offices, and we are really happy to have you engaging in this event with us here today. So let's get into our discussion about women's rights and opportunities with the focus on Africa. This is an issue that I'm really passionate about. And what's exciting is to see the strides that women have made in countries across the world in all realms, the political realm, the economic realm, on the front of women's rights and women's opportunities. And we've seen firsthand in our country and in countries around the world the tremendous impact that that has on national development and growth. The data is robust that engaging women in all spheres of society helps drive countries forward. Having said that, there is still a lot of work to be done, both in the US, on the continent, and around the world. The United Nations reports that 1 in 5 women and girls between the ages of 15 and 19 have experienced violence over the past 12 months. And 49 countries still lack laws protecting women from domestic violence. 750 million women and girls were married before the age of 18 last year. And in 18 countries, husbands can legally prevent their wives from working outside the home. Globally, women hold around 24% of seats in national parliaments. There's been a lot of advances on that front, but it's still far from gender parity. And also globally, women are just 13% of agricultural landholders, which is clearly limiting women's engagement in the economic sphere in a sector that is robust in many countries. So we do have some work to do. But today, our 4 colleagues who wake up every single day working on this issue, promoting women's rights and opportunities in their country, are going to give us some insights into their work and into the successes and challenges they're facing every day. So I'd like to turn the floor over to them for some brief self-introductions. We'll kind of go down the line, and then we'll dig into some questions that we have prepared.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I am Wuraoluwa Ayodele. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a lawyer and women rights advocate. I'm also the founder of Women's Safe House Sustainers Initiative. It's an organization where I help rehabilitate women from abuse, from sexual abuse, from every form of domestic and gender-based violence in Nigeria. I also provide shelter, temporary accommodation, feeding, clothing, healthcare, and legal aid for these women and girls of all ages across Nigeria.
Hello everyone, my name is Alfie from Congo DRC, and I work as a training officer, but I'm also a gender specialist in an organization called Congo Peace Network. I also initiated Empower People Network, which is a network that is focused on women and youth empowerment. I know that most people think that gender is only an issue for girls, but I'm here to tell you today that all the men have to be involved in this because it's an issue even for us, and if we don't work toward addressing those challenges, our world will not be safe. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Chikondi Chaua and I'm from Malawi, the home heart of Africa. I am an IT professional with 4 years experience in different fields in the IT sector. I'm also the founder of Girl Rise Up initiative, where I work to empower women and young girls through education, technology, and sustainable energy. I'm also a writer. I write on women issues, mainly to educate people on women issues. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone, my name is Riem Ahmed. I'm a national consultant and the youth focal point for UN Women in Sudan. I'm also an active volunteer in many initiatives related to women empowerment and gender equality.
Great. Good. Thank you so much for those introductions. So let's start by digging a little deeper with each of our panelists. And maybe we can start with you, Reem, and I'd love to hear from each of you on this. So clearly, you're deeply engaged in these issues. But what motivated you? What is your why? What motivated you to get involved in promoting women's rights and opportunities, especially for young people in your countries? And was there a moment where things clicked and you knew that you wanted to dedicate a big part of your career to this?
Thanks, Nancy. Actually, for me, it was always about development. I hate being called as a citizen of underdeveloped country. I really want to know what it will take to get Sudan to be as a developed country. That was always my passion. So I've been studying all the theories of development, and for me development, my conclusion was development is about inclusion. So you cannot talk about good governance and development without include everyone in the development cycle. And women are part of this cycle. So, and then I studied gender development and peace studies, and I realized the inequalities that women have been through at all levels, at the macro level, at the government, the family law we have in Sudan is horrible. It just makes women dependent through their whole life. So for me, I really want to address all these inequalities because for me, the development, it depends on the civilization of the nation. So, and I'm seeing that now in Sudan, my people are really politically very conscious, and women have been leading the protesting in Sudan. So that motivated me that I really want my country to be a developed country, and I wish all African countries to be a developed country, and we as a leader, we need to take the lead to make our country developed, and we need to be a change makers to develop the youth, because we have a lot of potential people in Sudan and in all the African countries that they need our help. So we can do this change. So for me, it's about development, and there is no country can be developed without, and women are not valuing it. The developed country depends on how they treat women. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thanks. How about you, Chico?
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I grew up in rural areas because of the nature of my father's job. We used to move from one district to the other, and all of them were like rural areas. So I went to the rural schools, and the turn-up for girls in lower grades were high, maybe 60% girls and 40% boys. But then when I reached to grade 8, I saw that we were only 5 girls in my class, and we had 20-something boys. And when we wrote our junior examinations to enable us to go to secondary school, I was the only girl that was selected to go to secondary school. I wasn't happy. I couldn't celebrate with my friends, and I went to secondary school and then I went to college, same thing. I took up a computer course that I was studying. And then in my class, we were like 6 girls and the rest were boys. And in those rural areas, I also noticed how women were cutting down trees because they are the ones who are responsible for household energy, and they were cutting down trees, using that for firewood. You would see them cooking in small huts whereby there is a lot of smoke coming out. It's not good for their health. So when I got to 4th year, I knew what I wanted to do: empower women through sustainable energy, education, and technology. So I'm using technology to empower these women. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please, Elfie. Yeah.
Thank you very much. For me, it's a bit different because I trace it all back to my mother, that I love so much. I wish she could be watching me right now. And I grew up in a progressive family where men and women, all the kids were considered equal. And at 7, I was able to cook. I know this is not common for most African men, but I was able to cook when I was 7, and now I can take care of myself because my mother taught me to do so. Chores in the family. We could do this, men and women, at different times, depending on who is busy, who is not busy, who is doing something else. And I could even go to fetch water. I know probably most of you guys who are watching me, you don't know what that means. But I've done that, and now I'm proud to be this person that I've become because of my family. And my father was always supporting my mother throughout the process. And when I go outside of my family, I see these young girls and these young boys. They're not treated equally as I was treated in my family, and this hurts me. And probably most of you know that Congo has been quoted recently the capital of sexual violences, and this is why Dr. Denis Mukwege, the recent Nobel Prize, has been nominated for his fight against sexual violence against women in my country. And I'm fighting against that because I also want to be part of the fight that he's doing. I want also to contribute. I want to make women understand that they matter, because I believe in men as equally as I believe in women. I know that every woman is capable of doing what a man can do. And this is why I'm fighting for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Elfie.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I'll start by saying that I'm a survivor of violence myself. And this was very critical to my understanding the issues of women and girls in my community. I grew up in a community where I discovered that women and girls were marginalized. A girl was assumed to be not better than furniture. And I discovered that there were several challenges facing women: poverty, lack of health care, lack of education, basically exclusion. But one major thing that touches all women is the issue of violence. So I decided I was going to tackle that problem because I discovered that that problem was connected to all the other problems. Now, my experiences as a survivor and my experiences seeing the girls and the women around me all put together motivated me to get into this work that I do now. At age 12, I already knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to fight for the rights of women. I knew I wanted to protect every woman and girl in my community. I knew I didn't want anyone to face violence. I knew that cultural practices and religious beliefs that had fueled the issue of violence in my community was bad and needed to end. And so I thought of, what do I do to help women? I knew I needed some form of authority, some form of power for people to listen to me, for me to speak about women's rights, and for people to hear me. So what did I do? I became a lawyer. I actually became a lawyer because I wanted to help women, because I wanted to help girls. And I understood this passion. I knew anytime I had to speak about women or speak about girls, I knew what I felt inside of me. And I knew, if I put this power, into helping women in my community, into helping girls in my community, I'll be better for it. So that's my motivation, and that's my passion.
Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your personal stories with us. And it's really powerful to hear about what brings you to this work and what brings you to show up every day to work on these tough issues. So I wanted to follow up a question with you. One thing that you've shared with our group over the past couple of weeks is how you talked eloquently about the difference that you see in yourself of being, the difference between being an activist and an advocate. And I wanted to kind of tease that out a little bit, because you, if I understand correctly, have specifically chosen to call yourself an advocate. Why is this important to you in the work that you do, that distinction and the way that you kind of self-identify, and how do you use that to help frame your work around women's rights?
Thank you, Nancy. I believe for every work in the world, for positive change, acceptance is important. Acceptance from your community, acceptance from people that matter, acceptance from your family. I discovered when I referred to myself as an activist, what I wanted people to hear is, oh, she likes women's rights. She's fighting for inclusion of women. She's fighting to end gender-based violence. She's fighting to protect women from violence. But what do people hear? People heard, oh, she's not interested in marriage. Oh, she's saying women shouldn't cook. Oh, she's saying women shouldn't have children or take care of their homes or be domestic. I got a negative response, just because I was referring to myself as an activist. And so I decided to refer to myself as an advocate. People kind of have a better reaction, to the word advocacy. They feel, oh, it's better. And so women began to come to me. Oh, I heard you're a women's rights advocate. Can you help me? Previously, even women were against the fact that I was an activist. I would say this, in Africa generally, activism and feminism are not favorable words to use if you're a women's rights activist, really, because people don't want to hear that. People don't want to listen to that. There's this stereotype, they just feel, oh, you don't understand what issues we're facing. So for me to gain acceptance in my community, for community leaders to listen to me, for me to have the ears of the people that matter, for me to have the ears of religious leaders, for me to have the support of my family, I decided to refer to myself as a women's rights advocate. And I would say this has been really beneficial. I've gotten the support of community members. I've gotten the support of family members. I've gotten the support of women and men alike. I've gotten the support of religious leaders all around. And it has been helpful. It's been helpful in pushing my work with women's rights forward and in protecting women and girls from violence, which is my primary goal.
Great. So interesting to hear about that strategic shift and the meaningful difference that you feel like it made in your ability to get things done and to rally others around your work. So, great. So Alfie, you painted such a vivid picture of what it was like to grow up in your household. It actually made me beam with pride, I'll have to tell you, because when I got home from work last night, my son was making dinner. He's 14. So he had dinner waiting for me when I got home, which I really appreciated. So I feel like I'm doing something right, as a mom. But I wanted to follow up on this idea of this concept of masculinity, because you've talked about the concept of positive masculinity and the importance of promoting that concept among in your society, but among men and boys in particular, kind of standing in contrast to some more traditional, maybe less helpful, potentially, let us know, concepts of masculinity. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about positive masculinity and how we can use that as a tool for promoting women's empowerment.
Thank you very much for the question. Again, I trace this back to my father. He's a very special man. He is so strong. But he never used violence to communicate with us or to communicate with my mother. She always used that to protect his family. And I wish all the men could use the strength that they think they possess, which is true, to protect our sisters, to protect our mothers, to protect everyone around them. Because being a man doesn't mean being violent. Being a man doesn't mean oppress someone else. Being a man doesn't mean not support someone else. I believe that despite all the strength and skills that we may have, we may use that in a positive way to impact our communities. Because generally violence, domestic violence, is generally done by men in our families. It's rare that a woman beats her husband, but it's very frequent that men beat their women and their wives and their children, but I've never experienced that as a kid in my family. My father was always protective, supportive, despite everything that he had. And I'm calling all the men who are watching me now and everybody who is listening to me right now, that you should understand that this is not just a women issue. We are all perpetrators, and we should see and find a way that we can use all the talents that we have, the strength that we have, to support men and women at the same time. And I believe that there is no harm in doing that. It doesn't make you weak to protect someone else. It makes you strong. I know some people call me names. Back home, some people call me, have you become a woman or feminist? I am proud to be who I am because I know it matters, and I'm contributing to building my community and try to make the world a better place. So I wish that everyone could be able to understand that everything we are doing, we don't have the right to oppress anyone else. An educated person is someone who is capable to get what they want without violating the rights of others. And I believe that there is no point in doing harm to someone else so you can prove that you are someone. And I'm talking to men specifically. You can be strong and protect. You can be strong and kind and not be violent to people. So this is my opinion about that.
So well put. Thank you for sharing that. That was really, really eloquent. So great. One of the amazing benefits of the YALI Network or programs like the Mandela Washington Fellowship is the way that these programs bring people together, bring like-minded people together. It's about the power of numbers. It's about the idea that if we work together toward common goals, there's nothing that we can't accomplish, even on really tough issues, in countries or across country contexts. Reem, I wanted to follow up with you because clearly, and you know, Elfie and others have already touched on this, it takes men and women both, right, to advance women's rights and opportunities across the world. So we know that for sure. But we wanted to dig a little bit deeper with you, speaking from your personal and professional experience, about peer support for women. Is that something that you've seen important in your work and in your network? Have you seen it working well? Have you seen where it breaks down? Would love if you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Also, I just want to say to Alfie that it's a great, you should be very proud as a man feminist.
Thank you very much.
So, I've witnessed so many events that women being against other women, this is so happening. But I want to share a good experience that happened in Sudan during the uprising in Sudan. I've been in many meetings with women in the civil society, and Sudan is really a big country and we are very diverse, so we do have a very different ideologies. So women, they do have a different ideologies. We have the Islamist feminists, we have the communists. So, and I mentioned the Islamists and the communists because their ideology is very different, so it's very hard to find them sitting in one table and agree in a common agenda. But what happened in Sudan, actually, they agreed. Because, why? Because they have a common goal. They knew that within the patriarchal system through the past 3 years in Sudan, they will never get their rights. So they had to sit together and agree in one agenda, and that was really surprising and inspiring for me, that they put all the conflicts aside and they decided just to agree in one agenda, which is just to free women. And what they want actually for now, they are demanding a 50% of the upcoming transitional government, and it's absolutely their rights. So I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of being Sudanese woman. They've been leading the uprising in a very inspiring way. So I think women can agree in one agenda if they have one objective.
Great.
Thank you.
Great example. Thank you for giving us some insight into something that we've all seen on the news, but how inspiring to hear about women coming together from very different backgrounds toward a shared goal. Really powerful stuff. Thank you. So Chico, my next question is for you, because you mentioned that you are using the power of information technology to empower women and young girls. We would love to hear a bit about what the gender digital divide looks like in your country. Are there differences that you see in access to technology that men and women have, or boys and girls have, both physical access but also societal barriers maybe that keep women and girls from seeing that as part of their lives and part of their careers? And would love to have some examples that you can share with us of how you have seen the ICT sector, information and communications technology, used effectively to provide new opportunities for girls and women.
Thank you for that, Nancy. We've seen how the use of technology has tremendously increased in the recent years, and I consider technology as a strong tool to use to empower women. I'll give you examples whereby I'm using technology to actually empower women. A pregnant woman in a rural area using technology to communicate with a midwife, to access information and to book appointments at a district hospital which is far from where she lives. Students accessing the examination results through the software systems. Women farmers accessing information on their mobile phones, information on how they can go about farming, thereby cutting down the cost of extension workers and all those things. Also using technology to teach basic computer lessons to young girls, and shout out to Google for all the initiatives that they have been doing. They have open source tools which are used to teach these young people how to code, how to go about in other different computer lessons and stuff like that. So this is how powerful information technology is in the empowerment of women. And the growth of technology in my country between women and men, I think in recent years I've seen women taking up more, going for STEM courses more than it used to be, like in 5 years down. But in recent years, I've seen the growth of technology and women taking up our technology courses. Yeah.
Great. Good. Thanks for sharing those insights. And it's a challenge here too in the US. There's a big push on STEM for girls. Again, I'll reference my son. He was in a coding class 2 summers ago, and he came home and I said, "So how was class?" And he was excited about it. And I wasn't thinking too hard. I said, "So, who's in that class? How many girls?" Out of 30 kids in the class, there were only 4 girls. So it is still definitely a challenge, I think, across the board in a lot of countries, including our own. But these are such great career tracks for women and girls, and very just a great livelihood. So thank you for the work that you're doing to inspire and encourage young people to see that as a great career. So now I'm excited to be able to turn to some questions that have been submitted by our friends in the YALI Network. And I have a question for each of you that came in advance. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And thanks again so much to everyone who submitted questions. I wish we could take them all, but we've got 4 that we can take this morning. The first is for you, Wura. It's a question submitted by YALI Network member Rukeya Mohammed in Nigeria. And Rukeya is wanting to know, what can we do to fight and to end gender-based violence?
Thank you, Nancy. I would say that the end to gender-based violence is a goal, but a goal for the future. And why am I saying so? There's so many things now that support violence in our communities. We still have a lot of cultural practices and religious beliefs that support violence. We still have cultures where a man rapes a woman and he's asked to marry her. Across Africa, across all our African countries, we still have several religious beliefs that support violence. Well, some not directly, some indirectly, but still supporting violence. So I would say, while we all fight to end violence, I'm not sure we're going to see the end of violence in this generation. But I know one thing for sure, it will end someday. Now, how can we fight? Because that's the question. 1, we need to educate ourselves. we need to start from the scratch. We need to groom our children to understand that violence is not okay. We need to educate the boy child as well as the girl child that violence is not a thing that should be done as a norm. Boys need to know that hitting a girl is not okay. Girls need to know that hitting a boy is not okay. I mean, a lot of families across the world, a boy is actually taught to beat his sister. You know, he's training her when he does so. He's teaching her, even when he's younger than her. Even in school, boys are taught, oh, when a girl does something, you know, you need to slap her so she comes back to her senses. All of those weird and primitive cultural practices need to end for us to forge ahead. And we all need to be involved. This is not a job for one. Everyone needs to be involved in this. Like I always say, everyone has a woman in their lives. You have a sister or a daughter or a mother or a wife. No one can act like the issue of violence doesn't actually concern them. Violence is not a private matter. It's not a domestic matter. It involves everyone. So I'll start by saying that in the fight to end violence, we all must educate our children. This generation must take it upon themselves to educate the children that we're bringing into this world, to understand that violence is a crime.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, we need a good support system. I'm tired of people coming and saying, oh, I'm a victim of violence, but my family rejected me. I'm tired of people of rape victims, you know, practicing the silent culture. The culture of silence needs to be broken. People need to speak up. People should stop discriminating against victims of violence across the world. It is a crime when you victimize someone based on the fact that the person has been a victim of violence. So I will say this. We need to have a good support system. Community leaders need to support more. They cannot act like they are ignorant of the issues of violence in their communities. Religious leaders need to be more responsive. Security agencies need to be more responsive. We are tired of reporting cases to the police station and then the police officer in charge of that case sits down and begins to try to, reconcile parties. We are tired of that. Violence is a crime that should be treated the way it is, as a crime, not as anything else. Family members need to support victims of violence. It's funny, in Africa, a woman gets married and her husband begins to beat her and she can't go back home. Why? Because there's no support system. Because her mother or her father says, stay there and just, manage. And her mother says, that's the same thing I went through when I just got married. Don't worry, that's how marriage is. We need to stop these practices. These practices are evil. A practice that says someone has been raped and she can't speak out. There are several rape victims, several cases that we have handled, and the victims have not been able to seek justice because they're afraid of what the community, what society will say about them. So a good support system. Finally, I'll talk about having awareness programs. And awareness programs include policy making, because I believe that in several countries, we still do not have policies that protect women and girls from violence. And in several countries, even where we have policies that protect women and girls from violence, there has been no implementation. So I would say awareness is very important. Awareness of these policies. And for countries that do not have policies, enacting policies is very, very important. Awareness programs. We are grateful for the Me Too movement that has gotten a lot of people on board, talking about violence and getting people to share their stories. People need to be aware of what is going on in their communities. We cannot turn a blind eye. We cannot turn a blind eye anymore. Women and men, I would say, are dying of violence. But I would say this, we have more women dying of violence, just like Elfie earlier highlighted. And the time to fight to end violence is now. We can pick any of these ways I have mentioned before. I will wrap up by saying, start with yourself. Start where you are. There are several organizations already working on violence. Join an organization close to you. Let your voice be heard. If you think that violence is a problem, don't keep quiet. Start with yourself and start now. Thank you.
It's a great challenge to all of us to get involved. Whether we're facing violence or not facing violence, we can all be passionate advocates on this issue. So thank you for that, that plea.
I would like to add something.
Please do,
to
yeah.
what she said. Just like I mentioned previously, being a man doesn't mean being violent. And it doesn't make you a man. I don't think being violent makes you a man. You can find, I don't think there is anywhere where they describe in a dictionary to be a man, you have to be violent, you have to oppress others, you have to use violence, you have to, I don't think so. And I would like my brothers from other countries and my fathers, my sisters, all of you, I would like you to think about these people who are suffering because of violence done against them, especially in my country, DRC. Pretend that could happen. Just think that this was your mother or your sister, victim of violence. No matter what kind of violence is that, just, would you like that to happen? Or would you like that to happen to your son, your daughter, or your sister, your cousin? I think this is nothing to be proud of. This is something that we should all stand together against and understand that it's not making our society better. We should find out a way of coming together and ending this issue because it's really unacceptable and it hurts so much. I think mothers understand this more than we fathers, future fathers. I'm not a father yet, but I would never like something happen to my children just because someone thinks he's better than someone else and he needs to act violently to prove that to someone. Yeah.
Well, and I think what you're both talking about so passionately really is this issue of cultural shifts, which we know take time, right?
Yes.
But it is possible, right? The evidence is there. Culture can shift, right? If we try to shift it in a productive direction that's good for all. So, Elfie, while you've got the mic, I'm going to follow up actually with another question submitted by a YALI Network member from Somalia named Yaqub. Thank you so much for this question. It's an interesting one. Yaqub wants to hear about the relationship between empowering women and peace building. And I am intrigued by this question because it made me wonder, do we need to have peace first and then we can empower women? Or can we not have peace without empowering women? What's the relationship between those two concepts?
Thank you very much. I strongly believe that we cannot talk about peace building if we don't involve both women and men in the process. And the resolution 1325 states everything about that. And I believe that to create peace, lasting peace, we need to hear the voices of women. And if their voices are not heard, since they are mostly the victims of violence, I believe that women cannot decide for women about their problems. They need to speak up for themselves. They need to be present in decision making. They have to be there to talk about their experiences and everything that they have as challenges so that we may come up together with solutions. I may not decide for a problem of a woman without listening to a woman. I think that to solve any problem, we need to involve the person in the problem. And men have no right to decide about what a woman is going through. A woman should speak for herself so that people can understand what's going on with her, how she experienced that, and how terrible it has been for her to overcome that if she had overcome that. And I think that we have to work both on building peace and empowering women, since there's a big gap in decision making when it comes to women. And we should not only work on addressing that issue, but we can also work on building our community and make it a better place. So I believe that we don't have just to work on peace, because there is no way we can speak about peace if the majority of the victims are not involved in the process. So this is why they have to be represented. It's not just about participating, but also in the role that they play. Like, I know people would think that I'm here, I was not supposed to be here. No, I'm here because this is my fight. I know that what I can do, she can do it, and I cannot speak on her behalf. Since she knows how it feels being a woman, and she knows how bad it is to experience certain things that I personally can't have a word for. So this is why I believe that women and men should come and work together. And men, we need your support to empower our girls, our women, and our families, and everywhere. I need this to be, I don't believe that anything could be done if women were not there. Because I believe they work 24 hours a day. My mother, she goes to work, she cooks, and she wakes up to cook breakfast again for us. And I don't believe that it should continue like that. Men should also contribute in that. When mom is at work, dad is doing something. Sometimes my dad goes to the market, to the groceries to bring food home. And say, no, I know mom is busy at work right now, and I can do also something to contribute, even if I'm not a good cook, but at least I can go buy the food that we are going to eat at night. So I believe that nothing is, peace cannot be lasting if women are not participating in decision making. So it's not separate things, they work together.
Yeah, so not either or, but hand in hand, those two
Hand in
concepts.
hand, yes.
Got it.
If I can add also for you that, I mean, women, they played a great role in peace processing throughout Africa history, especially in Liberia, for example. I mean, women, they led the peace process, so they're really a good negotiator because they've been victims of peace, as you have said. So it doesn't make any sense not to include them.
Good. Thank you for that additional insight. And while you've got the mic, Reem, I think I'll follow up with a question for you, submitted by a YALI Network member named Mohammed Yelwa from Nigeria. And Mohammed is wondering, and you spoke to this already, so add if you've got anything else to add on it, but it's a two-part question, so you may want to dig in more to the second part. Number one, why do you feel that gender equality is important? But also why it should be a concern for men, and how does that play out in your country context? Can you give us some examples? Can we find men in Sudan who call themselves feminists? What does the engagement of men look like on gender equality in Sudan?
Actually, for the first part of the question, why gender equality is important, I think the question should be why there is a gender inequality, because we didn't wake up in the morning and find ourselves, our mindset that we are the men responsible from the kitchen, we are the childcare. It has been inherited. So, and the main evidence of this that the women's situation is not the same throughout the world. In my country, in Sudan, the situation of women in Khartoum is not the same. In Darfur is not the same in Eastern Sudan. So basically, it depends largely on the social norms, on the negative cultures that made a very, the consequences of this, as Wurawat has been explaining earlier, that the GBV, so basically we didn't find ourselves equal. So we are not trying to invent a new things called gender equality. We found there is injustice and we are trying just to bring it to the right track. So why everyone should be included, actually men as a part of the community. If Elfie was trying to say that you don't want your daughters to be treated negatively, but I want to ask men, if it was the opposite, if all men in the world have been subordinated, walk in the shoes of women. If that's okay with you, then it's okay with us. I'm sure it's not okay with you. So that's why what we are trying to do is just to make the things in the right track.
Great.
And what was the other question?
Just any commentary on male feminists in Sudan. Do we see men who identify as feminists in your movement?
Yeah, we have men feminists. They're not a lot, of course, but there is a feminist man, and it's really a great thing to have men supporting women. Actually, for me, it's a normal thing to support women, But since we don't have this, it's very rare, so we will make, they are heroes for us, the feminist men. And we had a workshop about positive masculinity, and there's a lot of men have been part of this workshop. And also during the uprising in Sudan, I've seen a lot of young men have been supporting other women. It was really incredible. So there is a positive change in the, I think that the future will be better in terms of gender equality.
Great, very encouraging to hear. Thanks for those insights. So, and our final question for the YALI Network is for you, Chico. You know, we've talked here a little bit about societal norms and how those shape what young boys and girls believe growing up about the proper roles for men and women. So this question is submitted by the YALI Network member, Munyaneza Sharif from Rwanda. This questioner is wondering whether you have seen that actually in your country context. Do you see that girls have self-limiting beliefs about their role in your country and across Africa that they kind of cling to as they're growing up, that limit their prospects? And how can we help young girls dream big?
Thank you for that. I think it all comes to social behaviors, like cultural beliefs, whereby a girl is taught that from a young age that you belong in the kitchen. From my own experience living in the rural areas, I've seen that most girls, if they want to go to school, because they have already been taught that you get married, maybe you can't go past 18 years, you have to get married. If you do, people will be calling you names like you are a prostitute or something like that. So they'll go to school, but then they'll just go there. Some of them will be telling you, like, I just want to go to school so that I learn how to count numbers, so that people don't steal from me when I go to the marketplace or something like that. So I think cultural beliefs is one of the limiting factors for the girls, mostly in my country, Malawi, and I think Africa as a whole. Yeah, so I think we can overcome that by involving like everyone, starting with the girls themselves, their families, their communities, and the whole country. So I think inclusion of everyone in sensitizing them on the need for girls to go to school, the bad things related to cultural beliefs and stuff like that, it will help to limit these problems.
Great. Wura, did you want to add to that? Thank you, Chico.
Yes, I want to add to that. So in addition to what Chico said, sometimes it's not even about the girls or their families. You know, it's about people even outside their communities. You know, they can't do anything meaningful without people viewing them with, oh, you're a woman. Now, no matter how high you go as a woman, you're still a woman. And because we live in patriarchal societies, we're still viewed as, oh, she's a woman. So even if you become the president of your country, you're still viewed as a woman. So that's why you would see a man or whoever it is now, who has less education than you have, who doesn't understand things like you do, but would rather look down on you because you're a woman. So for the girls, I would say, start by changing your mindset. Look at yourself and understand that you are much more than you think you are. Look at yourself in the mirror every morning and tell yourself, I'm amazing. I can do much more. I can be anything and whoever it is I want to be. And I'm going to get to anywhere I need to get to in life. This is how we're going to change this. And this is how we're going to get the future that we need to get to with women leading.
Great. Good. Thank you.
And I totally support you on that. I know that you are more than you think you are. And where I come from, in the trainings that I facilitate with women and men, because of the cultural limiting and the system that we have grown up in, sometimes we give opportunity to women to speak. But because they are with men, if they are not supporting them, it's an issue. So I want the men also to be part of this. I want men to be encouraging women that they're capable, that they can do that it's possible for them. there is nowhere that they said that, no, this is only men can do and not women. I believe that we are equally intelligent, and I know even smarter women than myself.
Yeah, I want to say that.
I know women who are smarter than me, and I get advice from them. It doesn't make me less than a man. It makes me strong, and I learn from that. And I believe that if we could start looking at our sisters, our mothers, and all women around the world as equal to men, then we can create this society that we all aspire to create. And it begins with men understanding and supporting the women in the process. Since creation, men have been in power. I think it's time that we start empowering women. We start, how would the world look like if women and men could equally participate in building the planets that we aspire to have? So I believe that, I support you totally. Yeah, all the women around the world, if you feel rejected, at least remember that there's a man somewhere in Congo who thinks about you and who believes in you and who knows that you can do anything you want. And no man should be able to stop you from doing that.
Good. Right on. So our time is almost to a close. We could sit here all day and have this conversation. I'm lucky because I get to continue this with the next 2 weeks with you. But I always like to close with a lightning round, and let's keep it really short. One word, right? So we have Presidential Precinct friends from around the world who are joining us today. We have a lot of friends here in this beautiful space here at Morven Farm. And we have new friends from the YALI Network online as well. What is one leadership quality, one word, that you think is really, really critical for young leaders around the world as they strive to make positive change in their countries and communities? What's the one quality? There are a lot needed, obviously, but what's one quality that comes to your mind that you think is really essential? One word. We'll kind of go down the line and then we have to close. So,
Inclusion.
Inclusion.
That's one word for me. It means include everyone. Do not exclude anyone. Let everyone's voice be heard. Let everyone's opinions be taken into consideration. Let's respect each other's diversity. Let's respect each other's mentality and mindset, and understand where we are all coming from so that we can all work together to achieve positive change.
Great. Thank you. What's your word, Elfie?
Empowerment.
Okay.
I don't know if I need to explain this. Since we've been talking about this
We
all
got
this
you.
section.
Thank you.
And this involves both women and men.
Great. How about you, Chico?
For me, I would go for being ethical.
Ethical.
Yeah, that's having the respect for other people's values, their opinions, culture, norms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great. Reem?
For me, having said all of this, I will say resistance, continuous resistance, because change will happen. Just continue to resist, and you will make a huge change, I'm sure.
Great. Good. Well, I can't think of a better way to end with those 4 powerful words and concepts that we can all take with us as we continue the work that we do. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your ideas with all of us this morning. It's been a really interesting and fruitful discussion. We're so glad to have you up here, and thank you for the work that you do in your countries and communities to bring forth equality for women and girls. We really appreciate the work that you do. And we know it's having a major impact, not just in your countries, but on the continent as a whole. So our time is over for this MWF Live. Thanks so much for joining, and we would love to continue the conversation on our Facebook page. So it doesn't end here. We can keep it going. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Yes, we can, sure we can change the world. Yes, we can, sure we can change the world. Yes, we can, sure we can change Africa. It go happen, no.